This weekend marked a couple of holidays. End of Passover, Easter Sunday, 420, but Friday the 18th was Superman Day, the 87th anniversary of Action Comics #1, published on April 18th, 1938. In preparation for the new Superman film, I said I would be watching them all and then ranking them. I definitely forgot about that until I saw on one of DC's Instagram posts that Superman Day was coming up, and I thought, hey, now I have a reason to do it. Like, actually do it. But before we get into it, I like to say, if you like my other videos and you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I know I'm not the most consistent with uploading, so I won't push for the bell, but I won't be mad if you did it anyways. This is every theatrically released solo Superman movie. I didn't have the time or bandwidth to do Batman v Superman, and I also thought it'd be unfair comparing that movie, where he kind of shares the screen with another big titled superhero. It just didn't feel right. And Superman has a weirdly limited role in that movie anyways, so that also wouldn't have been fair. So Batman v Superman, not in this list. But it is celebrating 10 years next year, so be on the lookout for that review. With all that out of the way, here is my personal ranking of the live-action Superman movies, ranked from worst to first. Superman 3, more like Superman 3 out of 10. If you didn't like that joke, I don't think you'll like the humor in Superman 3, or basically all of Superman 3, because it's basically a comedy that stars Richard Pryor, and then Superman slowly gets more screen time. Yeah, I did not like this. Don't get me wrong, the first two movies have lighter tones and a lot of humor, but they don't split it like right down the middle the way that Superman 3 does. Why does Richard Pryor have as much screen time as a superhero? I haven't heard any of his work, I admit. I know he's a comedy legend, but I can tell the script was written around the idea of having a funny person in there versus letting the said funny person do their thing. There are some fun deliveries here and there. Richard Pryor makes some great faces, but I'm just so confused as to why he has such a big role in this movie. That'd be like if in Spider-Man 3 they had Chris Rock play a side character who isn't really bad but works with the bad guy, and then has like an hour of screen time, and then doesn't even meet up with Spider-Man until the end of the movie. Like, that doesn't sound good. But on top of the god-awful pacing, the most frustrating thing about Superman 3 is just how many actually good ideas are in there, but are ultimately weightless when we see them executed. I love the idea of Clark Kent having a high school sweetheart back in Smallville and reconnecting with her. That's really cool. But also falls flat when you remember that, oh yeah, he went back in time to save Lois Lane. Like, he's not... I don't buy that just because Lois Lane went on this trip, he's like, oh, I don't care about her anymore. You know, like, again, it's a nice idea. I like it. I like the idea of Clark getting that happy ending and becoming a father figure, but I just don't buy it. Like, he only really has eyes for Lois Lane, you know? There's also the really cool fight between Clark and the evil Superman that feels ripped right out of the pages of a Silver Age comic. It's just a bit hard to take that seriously, especially with Superman's evil appearance just making him look hungover. Wait a second. 5 o'clock shadow. Dark circles around the eyes. Am I evil Superman? This was also such a long 2 hours. This could have easily been an hour 45 if they cut some of the shtick or trimmed the ending fight, if you want to call it that just kept dragging on and on. It was also clearly supposed to be Brainiac from the robot design and idea of a supercomputer, but because we unfortunately never got the Richard Donner version of Superman 3, that's not what's here. And it doesn't work for me in many ways. I don't know. This whole thing was just a farce for me. If comically large cowboy hats can't save this movie, then nothing can. Okay, let me start by saying that after watching Superman 3, my expectations for Superman 4 were very low. I knew what to expect. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you that Superman 4 is good, but I'm a bit surprised that this is considered the worst one when it has the charm and heart, or at least glimpses of it, from 1 and 2 that were so badly missing in Superman 3. Speaking of things that were missing, what a breath of fresh air it was to have Gene Hackman back as Lex Luthor, and Lois Lane be an actual character in this one. You don't realize just how much you miss them until you see them on screen again, and they're such big parts of Superman 1 and 2, and what made the whole ensemble likable. You know, they help Metropolis as a whole feel like another character. They just fit so well. And speaking of fits, Lex Luthor got that shit on at the museum. Look at the dude. Unfortunately, this movie, like Superman 3, is a really try-hard comedy, whether it's intentional or not. One cut in particular had me absolutely cackling when I watched it. I'll let you see for yourself.
Loudly.
I just said I wish Superman would have said yes.
I know I shouldn't laugh, but overreactions just get me like that. There are moments in this movie that play out like a Marx Brothers movie, which is a really mixed bag. The double date sequence I thought was kind of cute. It's a really fun idea, the dual personality and how Clark has to manage going back and forth. The elevator trap with Radioactive Man is not. What was that? What was that? There's also the iconic
If you will not tell me, I will hurt people.
And the follow-up.
Stop! Don't do it! The people!
Like, couldn't have given us one more, Gene? Chris? No? There's also the awful special effects, which have been talked to death at this point. Like, I'm not going to get into that. These are just... That's too easy. That's too easy to target. You don't need me to tell you that. And yet, despite these things, there's such a clear sincerity here. From the opening of Clark refusing to sell his childhood farm to Superman taking more of a public figure position. I really like, well, any of the anti-war speeches, but that whole World Council meeting, from the meeting up with the boy and saying, oh, you'll need a sponsor, and everyone in the room raises their hands. Like, that's so sweet to me. That's funny. Like, that's how the world should react to Superman. The action in this isn't great, sure. This is a kind of comic book movie that has very dated visuals, like even more than some of the earlier ones, but the messages still apply. Sensationalism hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's worse now thanks to social media. But there are still journalists out there with a heart for the truth and wanting to tell the whole story. And world leaders may feel that war is the only way to prove a point or make a buck, but that shouldn't represent the whole of their country. Is it a bit preachy? Sure, but that kind of comes with the territory. I'll be thinking about this one far longer than the one that had Richard Pryor and a supercomputer, because at least this movie was entertaining and made me feel something. It may not be a good movie, but it's a cute Superman movie. I mean, come on. Him saying, I wish you could see the planet as I do. It's all just one world. That's like that. That's it. That's Superman, you know? Plus, this is a bad 90-minute movie versus a frustrating 120-minute movie, so with less time, I got more out of it. Superman Returns is not as bad as the opening of Ted 2 or critics in 2006 want you to believe, but it's not quite the underrated gem diehard fans would want you to believe. There's so much that I really like about this movie, but the few things that irk me are kind of major. Like, I get this is essentially Superman 5, but also a reboot, which is its own problem, really. And the fact that it's titled Superman Returns, I still feel like I could have seen more of him, especially when Lois Lane and Lex Luthor are given bigger roles and more dialogue. Obligatory note that Kevin Spacey, Bryan Singer, weirdos, But Spacey is perfect for this Gene Hackman tribute, channeling the levels of sass in the past outings with his own sense of crazy. See here the deliveries of "wrong" or "kryptonite." Ozzy, you're ruining the shot. You hear that? You hear that? That's my cat. That's my cat scratching. He does this so much. When Brandon Routh is there, he is Superman. Yeah, mostly doing a take on Reeve, but there are some standout moments of his own. Plus the fact that he is notably younger than Reeve when he played Superman, or at least he looks like it. This does play out like a lot of old-fashioned Superman stories, and I respect it for that. And the 2005 CGI has aged like wine in some spots, and aged like milk in others. I do like the idea of Superman having a son, as that's been a long time thing, especially in more recent comics with Jonathan Kent. Is it's a very modern element in this old-timey tale that works really well. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a bit emotional at the end, where Ruth delivers Brando's monologue as Jor-El from the very first one, bringing the saga a whole circle. It just also means that, intentionally or not, Superman was a deadbeat dad for 5 years. And I just don't think that's really in character for him. I don't know. Not a lot I can say that hasn't been said for 20 years now, but this movie is fine. I like it. I also couldn't bring myself to rank this lower than Quest for Peace, but for all this runtime, I just wanted a bit more characterization, and a little more action wouldn't have been too bad either. Superman 2 is a notable step down from the first one in terms of resolution, plot, and overall coherency, but it's still pretty good. The beginning of this movie is amazing. I love the opening sequence in Paris and how right from the get-go there's a lot more action. Unfortunately, so much of the story in the second to third act has such quick, unearned resolutions that it's clear this was heavily edited once Donner was let go. Man, what is up with movies starring Superman getting butchered by studios? As a villain, Zod is great, and it was really cool to see the inspiration for Man of Steel, even if in this movie, his helpers, Ursula and Nan, are actually given personalities. In fact, the villains in this movie are almost more interesting than anything else, which is a testament to the talent on display, but unfortunately magnifies the weakness of this final script. One of my favorite parts is when Superman hits Zod with the Mario 64. I love that Clark and Lois are more of a couple here, but since when does Superman have memory erasing kisses? Not only does that not happen in the comics, it's flat out predatory. Why does the Fortress of Solitude have a power erasing chamber? How did Superman switch it back without anyone knowing? These are the quick, happy ending moments that might happen in the original comics or in a older comic format, sure. But the ending of the first movie made it so clear that Superman has to be careful, that there might not always be a way to do it right the first time. All in all, I enjoyed it enough to watch again, but I'm much more inclined to track down the Donner cut than anything. As a tween, I had an era where I thought I was too cool for Superman. I know, silly. He had become nothing but an overgrown Boy Scout, especially with all these new Marvel movies that had imperfect characters and they were cool and interesting. And then I went and saw Man of Steel in theaters. Previously, I had never seen a Zack Snyder film, nor did I get this was about Superman at all until I saw the full trailer the first time, because I'd never heard the moniker Man of Steel. This is the movie that made me like Superman. Through his actions, whether it be fighting gravity itself as he flies through the world engine, or saving a group of men from a collapsing oil rig, I saw more of the hero, just what this being could really do. On the flip side, I saw just how human this superhuman was. He's a humble farmer. He's also an outcast, ostracized by his peers because of his abilities. He's also a mama's boy, finding comfort in her arms as she always knows just what to say. His relationship with his dad, well, either one of them, is complicated. One has nothing but faith in him and encourages his powers, while his earthly father tried to hide them until the day he died. Clark has been so confused for such a long time before ultimately realizing that he is the way he is to help people. He's supposed to be their hero, their role model, going out of his way even for the people who will mock him no matter what he does. He didn't ask for this burden, yet it's placed on him anyway, and he accepts that. After watching all the other ones, I appreciate this film more while simultaneously totally understanding the criticisms for it, as this is kind of an amalgamation of the first two Superman films. But everything done here, to me, feels very distinct. Terrence Stamp as General Zod had an incredible performance. I can't dispute that. But Michael Shannon's Zod is such a more menacing villain. He has convictions and reasons, and his drive is to remake Krypton, not rule this weakling Earth. On that note, I love the opening 20 minutes that we have on Krypton. I understand why people say that there's too much time spent on it, but to me that gives that much more weight to the destruction of it, and Kal-El's arc as a whole. One negative I saw on rewatch was that there are some more than questionable editing decisions, like a lot of really quick cuts during one fight, like in the beginning when Jor-El first gets apprehended, and then he like elbows the guy and then takes his gun. It's like, I'm like, we can just watch him. We can just watch him take the gun, or just watch him elbow the guy and take the other guy's gun. Like, there's so many cuts that don't need to happen, that are made to try and make the movie look quicker or feel more fast-paced, but just kind of gives you a headache. And there's a lot more shaky cam than I remember, like a lot, like too much, and that kind of threw me off. Or it would just be like, oh, I don't want to look at the screen while that's happening right now. Like, I don't get motion sickness, but I'm just like, this isn't fun to watch. Even with those technical things, this movie still hits for me. I know a lot of people aren't big on how many allegories to Jesus there are in this. As a Christian, I'm a bit biased. And it's hard to not draw comparisons with the story of Jesus from birth to death and Superman's origin. The church scene is one of my favorites, but will understandably appear almost too on the nose for others. I will acknowledge that the creators of Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, were Jewish men, and I think that this movie doesn't get enough credit for being a great immigration story and the tale of exile from Krypton and Superman's first arrival to Earth. That's done really well here, and then that aspect culturally hits the spot. Like, it does the job it's supposed to. I also just think Zod is so interesting, especially on top of the idea of this like burning world, like that he becomes so like just this extreme nationalist, but on a literal global scale, and the contrast between him and Clark. And on that note, the action in this movie, man. Action in this movie rips. The Superman and Zod fight is, I mean, any of the fights in this movie are awesome, but the Superman and Zod fight at the end, still one of my all-time favorite final battles. Like, it's just such a good duel. It's like watching Dragon Ball Z. Like, oh, the shit rocks. Man of Steel isn't for everyone, especially due to its polarizing director, the discourse surrounding several controversial moments, and the overall unfortunate franchise that this film brought about. I also think the third act drags a bit, as much as I enjoy it. But on what has to be my 9th viewing of this movie, I still fall in love with it. I still get chills, I still get tears in my eyes, and like watch in awe as this film takes a character nearing 100 years old so seriously. It's hard to not see it as modern mythology. I love this movie. just not quite as much as number one. Believe it or not, I had not watched Superman the movie until last year. Last Superman Day, actually. And I had a blast. It's narratively a bit clunky, but from the opening with the boy opening a comic, like Action Comics #1, to the severity of the situation that we feel in the destruction of Krypton, it's clear that Donner and crew not only had a strong respect, but sentimentality for this character. Christopher Reeve absolutely delivers still probably one of the best comic book movie performances to date, seamlessly weaving the dorky charm of Clark Kent with the malevolent machismo of the Big Blue himself. Shout out to Jeff East for doing the adolescent Clark Kent as well. I really liked the beginning and seeing this like coming of age story with Clark Kent. Like that was a really good first act like to set up with. Margot Kidder is a great Lois Lane. I don't know why we stopped giving comic book movie love interest to personality. Like she's great. She was the blueprint. She is an icon and she is the moment. What happened? And of course, Gene Hackman is great. Absolutely great as Lex Luthor in any of the movies he's in as. Rest in peace to a legend. It's kind of obvious to say not all the effects have aged the best, but this is more like when you rewatch the original Star Wars trilogy than when you rewatch something from like the late 90s or early 2000s. Like it still has that charm, that movie magic, and it's so cool to see. Like all the practical effects from Krypton and its destruction to the sets and the Fortress of Solitude, the suits, both like Superman's and like the different costume everyone wears. Like this is still a movie. Like this was the first like big comic book movie, but this is still a great movie. It's a great production, and that's what makes it stand out. This movie is a classic for a reason. It's campy in all the right ways, but it's still exciting, and it's funny, and it shows just what a movie could be. And we really wouldn't have a lot of, or frankly any modern comic book movies without it. As I mentioned earlier, there's the like sentimentality, the sincerity of it, and that really hit me when I first saw Superman Save Lois Lane, like that scene with the helicopter. It's not the first time we hear the theme or even the first time we see him fly, but to me that was the first time we see Superman. And the movie, specifically Richard Donner, understands just how impactful that scene is. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is what made me like and appreciate Superman as a character. But Richard Donner's makes me want to be him and be like him. And that alone is why the first Superman movie is still the best. Let me know what your rankings are for the Superman movies down below. I'm really glad I decided to do this marathon, and it worked out perfectly once I saw that Superman Day was coming up. So, really glad that we have this now. And also kind of funny it worked out as like it's sort of Easter special, you know. So, thank you so much for watching again. I really appreciate it. And may we all strive for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. I'll see you next episode. Same Zach time, same Zach channel.